Shabbat starts on Friday at sunset and ends Saturday sunset. Rael invited Bassett to Shabbat dinner with his sister and friends.
On Friday afternoon at dusk, we have our ladies in the homes light candles, which ushers in the Sabbath. The synagogue service begins at that time, where the congregation gathers to offer a welcome prayer to the Sabbath, which we call the Queen, the Sabbath Queen. After the prayer service, we go home, where we have a family meal.
The Friday night meal, which is very important socially for the family as well as a religious ritual.
Sanctification, or kiddush, is made over a cup of wine. Everybody partakes thereof.
Items
that would be of interest would be 2 loaves of bread called chalot, or in South Africa kitka, and that symbolizes the 2 portions of manna that the Almighty gave the Jewish people in the desert. There are certain songs that are sung that relate to the sanctity and beauty of the Sabbath, the harmony that it brings within the home and within the community.
Is that specially prepared, or it's not normally the same food that you would have normally, or it's special?
No. Well, here's some chopped herring. Traditionally it's also eaten with this.
And it's also spiced with a whole lot of pickles as well.
There's spice. You try it out, and then you have this kichel, it's called, a biscuit. People generally put the chopped herring onto a kichel to eat it, to try it out. But this is a herring, pickled herring. And,
which is basically a fish.
It's just a fish. And just like you were mentioning how it's not very symbolic while we eat. There's no real symbolism. It's just traditional.
There are certain acts that are not permitted on the Sabbath, defined as any act that shows man's mastery over nature may not be done on the Sabbath.
We don't work on the Sabbath, but it doesn't really mean work as in work, because in your house you can lift up a table if you want to.
Okay.
But whether that's, it's really the point of creating.
Classic example, you may not strike a match, for it creates fire, and that creation is what is forbidden.
How it's translated in the modern world is quite nice, and then you can look at it from a purely religious perspective, or you can look at it somehow as wholly kind of selfish perspective. I think that almost even beyond the religion itself, it sometimes can be a good idea. It also means you got to walk places, which I kind of like as well, is to spend an hour or 2 walking somewhere instead of driving, because it gives you time to often to think about things. If you're with a friend, to have a nice talk, which you don't normally have.
And there's a verse in the Torah, my power and my might have done all this. And God says, well, once a week, focus on the real thing, the Almighty, the Creator. Therefore you, the mere human being, you sit back, what's done is done. What isn't prepared, it's too late now.
But the other thing about the day generally is that you're sitting down with your family, you know there's no work, you're not allowed to work, you don't want to work. People generally...
It's a laid back
kind of thing. You don't feel like logging on and checking your email, and you can't. And that's one of the important things about the day, is that it gives you that time now that you start relaxing. One of the things that affects work is obviously the way we'd shut down on Friday afternoons and not work on Saturdays. The question of how you relate to your business. And I mean, we've discussed how the way to deal with people is try to be kind and try to be good. And but I mean, and that's one of the things that I definitely bring into the world. And one of the things I often am conscious of in a way is that I am Jewish, and I should behave in such a way, because people will not only be judging me, but they'll be judging my behavior and judging the Jews as a whole.
In fact, with Islam also, one of the 5 pillars of Islam is the whole concept of zakah. And this has become one of the fundamentals in the religion, such a fundamental that if any of the Muslim does not practice it, would be punished for not practicing it. If you're earning a certain amount of money, after taking off your liabilities, there is a percentage that you work out that works out to about 2.5%, which you take out from your business on a yearly basis. So they will take this 2.5% and then pump it to the community, back into the community. And that has made or ensured that the Muslim community as such gets the type of money needed, and you don't find poverty in your society.
I try also to keep the business to be charitable in certain ways. And like often, you know, when people come for charities and things, make sure that we are giving a certain amount of our income to charity.
And the whole concept of zakah also is not purely that you just have to give it to the Muslims as well. You could give it to non-Muslims as well, as long as the case is deserving. Okay, I noticed very similar to the mosque that we've been to. The women are separated from the men, and the way that it's done at the school that we've been, at the shul that we've been to, is this a thing that has been traditionally done from before?
Well, men and women have always traditionally prayed separately. And as you saw, some shuls you would have a curtain separating them. So it's also because men, I suppose, would get distracted by women praying, and that's the same, I think, reason it was in the...
I think if you look at the time of the Prophet Muhammad's period in time, women and men shared the same space in the mosque, and all the history would prove that that was the case. But there was a separation between the men and the women. And what had happened is, over the period in time, in certain areas, they've excluded the women totally from the mosque. Now, with the progressive movement coming through and say, look, you've got to follow the traditions of the Prophet, let's bring the woman back to the mosque to share the same space. But that's a process that's taking, and the thing is, sharing the same space, but with this specific divide.
This is one of the interesting things, and I suppose one of the reasons we're sitting together, I suppose, is the issue of fundamentalism versus progressiveness. We have a lot of strict rules and rules and customs that have come from...
Also strict rituals.
And strict rituals that have come from a lot of years and years. But one of the things that's happened now is, obviously, we live in a modern world, and I think we're modern people. And so we started to incorporate the traditions and take also the modern world and put them together. And I actually believe that they work very well, and they almost enhance one another. But one of the things, and especially I think strict Islam and anti-Judaism, is that the core fundamental principles are not really allowed to change.
I find it very interesting to be in a situation to understand other religions and tolerate the religions, and you learn a lot from the other religions. What I've learned in a few days that we spent together it's wonderful. You actually see it coming through, and then you come to respect why people practice those rituals.
I just has opened my eyes and got me even thinking about my own religion and other religions in the new life which has been.
And I think it's the whole thing about tolerance that's very, very important. And because we see that people can tolerate one another and they can live together in harmony. And I think most of the problems that we see in the Middle East are also based around the intolerance that we have for one another's religion. And that's where the whole problem actually starts, where we can start understanding that we can all live together.
And we also know that if people can be tolerant, the benefit to society as a whole will be, I mean, the spillovers will be unbelievable.